We're talking with Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue here at the NAFB convention, and we appreciate you being here. I have a couple questions. The GIPSA rules that were withdrawn have caused some concern among smaller producers. Is that process over? Are you going back to the table to kind of address some of the poultry issues, or where does that stand now?
Well, there were actually 3 rules, if you remember, and we withdrew 2. Those withdrawals are final, but we left the 3rd one dealing with the tournament system in place. What I frankly was a close call. There's issues on both sides. What I was concerned about was that we would lead just to a flood of litigation, and I believe commerce has done better by contract and negotiation than litigation. But also left the 3rd rule in place just as a real signal to the processors and the producers and the packers that we're going to be watching. Our motto at USDA is do right and feed everyone, and we're going to be watching to make sure people in this industry do right. And I know that may not be the legal comfort that people wanted, but I think, again, that the power of the Secretary in watching this, we can always reinstitute a rule if we think there are abuses taking place. But I was concerned over the case law as well. The circuit courts had not affirmed what they wanted to do with the rule, as well as Congress had declined to act. So there were a number of things that led to the decision, although from a farm perspective, I sympathize with people who had been offended and affronted by some of the demands of people in the industry. So the other thing I told a large group really, that objected to my decision was there's market power in groups. So if you feel like you're not being done right, form a co-op and go into that business and join together and make an effort. That's the best way to fight that.
I wanted to ask you about some reports we've been hearing about the beef grading system and the use of certain cameras that reportedly have malfunctioned, causing some concern that perhaps that compromised the grading. We heard today that there are some protections being put in place by the AMS. Can you confirm that?
Well, I think there have been some malfunctions at some places that have been determined. The food safety program is on that, and I think, again, this may have originated maybe from some disgruntled employee issues that feel like the cameras were maybe cutting them out of a job. So we want to make sure that we do things right. We've got, in meat and poultry, we've got inspectors on site all the time right there. And I think the statistics and data will demonstrate they're doing a very good job, and we've got the safest food supply in the world. So that's a great evidence that these people are doing right. We want to make sure it's zero tolerance, though, and whenever there's a malfunction, we want to catch it very quickly and understand their safety checks to make sure that we're doing it right.
And you mentioned the people factor. Don't they ultimately make the final decision on the grades? It's not the camera doing it.
Absolutely. They do that right. But I think some of them were concerned that there may be some technology that might cut some of their members out of a job.
I wanted to ask you about GMO labeling. Where is GMO labeling? We thought there was going to be something done, and kind of refresh us on that.
Well, Congress passed the law. You remember when Vermont moved and said we want not GMOs in here, and the Congress moved in a bill. A lot of times those kind of bills are thrown to the agencies to develop the regulations. It's a very complicated regulation, and the deadline is July of next year. We met with FDA the other day because they have a portion in the nutrition part of that labeling as well. We don't want to have manufacturers have to do both, so we're working on the kind of indications there. What sort of transparency should the customer expect in the labeling? How can you do that without looking like a pharmaceutical label with multi-folds there, and from a cost perspective? So our goal is to make as much information available as the consumer wants in a very efficient, effective way, in a very transparent way.
Okay, so that hasn't been delayed. That was the original deadline, was July of 2018?
That's the original deadline.
Okay.
That one has not been delayed.
Okay. I'd like to hear more about your, I'm not sure the exact name of it, but it's a Veterans in Ag program that you said that was just launched.
We announced it yesterday, and it's a recruitment, actually, of veterans transitioning from service back into agriculture, either the USDA specifically or agriculture in general. If they want to go to be entrepreneurs or farm or agricultural or food workers, then we want to help them get there by giving them a step-by-step process of how to do that. We also want to help them with access to credit and technology and hand-holding that would make them a good start. We find that those skills that they learned in the military are very adaptable to agricultural production and processing. So the disciplines they learn are very helpful, and you can learn more about it at USDA website. There will be a specific Vets to Ag web portion there that people can click on, and we would invite them to come take a look.
You mentioned we don't want cuts in crop insurance, and yet there's a tax proposal that actually raises the deficit. So how do you square those two?
Well, again, I think the president's intention over tax proposal are to cut rates, which create a short-term deficit, but will increase the economy to grow that deficit to a positive very quickly. We've already had back-to-back GDP growth of 3% annual over the 2 months, and one of which incurred a hurricane, which we think would have been 4% with that. But I believe if we can get a tax policy in place of cutting rates, bring this money back home, this $4 trillion overseas, repatriating that money, putting middle-class tax cuts where maybe people can keep more of that money, invest it, spend it, save it, whatever they want to do with it. That ripples through that economy and grows the economy where we will have more money. That's what we saw what happened when Reagan did that. We actually saw more revenue after the tax cuts. Right now you have to project a deficit there from that based on current status. You can't assume that growth, but we're confident that growth will come.
Well, there are those that disagree with that, and they do say that the taxes will be raised on farmers. One example is the Section 199 that's been eliminated for co-ops.
Yeah, that's absolutely not true that taxes will be raised on farmers. Farmers pay individual and small business taxes, and they're going to pay less. That's just a fact. I don't know why. The 199 on co-ops, that's a special type of, they're going to be special tax credits that are changed, and that's homeowners deduction, those kind of things. But rates are going to go down. It's going to be simple. It's going to be good for farmers.